My name's Steve O'Brien. I represent Rhymes Technologies and I head up our Enterprise Solutions team. So I'm pleased to be here today, and we're going to take you through a little bit about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but with a lens and a focus on performance measurement and data analytics. So right in the wheelhouse for this room. And before I introduce the panel, I just want to follow up on David's comment about the room. Everybody in the room here is using AI. Is that true? Are you all using AI at work? You might have had a look at it, I guess. Can I have maybe a show of hands? I don't want to put people who aren't using it because that will put you in the... People who are using AI at work in your day-to-day goings on in performance and other areas. Hopefully our panel will put their hands up. So yeah, there's definitely growth in this area. And I think, the good part is we've got a very strong panel here today. And I'll let them introduce themselves. Maybe start with you, Alexander.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Alexander Shalson. I'm the lead AI software engineer at Rhymes. And for those of you who don't know Rhymes, we essentially create cutting-edge data management solutions for the financial industry. And prior to joining Rhymes, I was at Accenture, where I helped build out their generative AI offering in the UK and Ireland. And I hold a first-class degree in computer science and AI.
Excellent. I'm Alex Serman. I'm the managing director of the wealth and institutional teams at First Rate. So we're a wealth tech solutions provider that specializes in performance measurement, client reporting software, as well as data aggregation and AI analytics. I've been with First Rate for about 8 years now and work very closely with managing our clients, being on the cutting edge of what we're doing in the industry, and very much utilizing AI to help both the performance analysts in their roles as well as advisors on how they work with their clients using AI.
I'm Paul Farrar. I'm head of investment analytics at Railpen. For those that don't know, Railpen is a UK DB pension fund. So we've got about 35 billion in AUM, we're multi-asset, and we're mostly internally managed. My role centres around risk and performance analytics, portfolio analytics and fiduciary oversight. I manage a very small team, so the way that we get by largely is we have a large reliance on automation to deliver the messaging that we need to deliver to decision makers around the business.
Excellent, thank you guys. So as I said, we've got a very strong panel here, so they're definitely going to talk to you a lot more detail about AI than myself, and hopefully you'll find it very informative. As we go through, we've got a number of set questions for them to talk to build up the knowledge and give you some more information about this. And there will be obviously a session at the end for Q&A, and we very much invite you to think about your questions, or if you've got any feedback you'd like to give on your own workings with AI. We'll take the first topic on the list, which is what is AI machine learning? What you think you know is probably different than reality. So maybe, Alexander, do you want to take that one first of all?
Definitely. So I'm going to try and explain the distinction between artificial intelligence and machine learning and generative AI, because these terms are often used interchangeably, but in reality they represent quite different concepts within the same field, right? So let's start off with AI. So artificial intelligence is a big umbrella under which lots of other technologies fall. Okay, so AI is a broad discipline concerned with creating systems that perform tasks requiring human-level intelligence. And so tasks like problem solving or understanding natural language or recognizing patterns and making decisions. So AI encompasses a wide range of subfields and approaches with a common aim of simulating certain aspects of human cognition within machines. So if you imagine artificial intelligence as an ice cream shop, then machine learning is a particular flavor of ice cream, right? So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence that focuses around developing algorithms and statistical models that enable computer systems to learn from and make predictions or decisions based off of data. So essentially, machine learning is a method that allows computers to learn from experience. And, one application of machine learning in finance is if you wanted to create a model to predict fraudulent transactions, and you would train it on historical data. And so machine learning is made up of 3 key paradigms, right? And I won't open that can of worms today, but briefly, it's supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. And generative AI is a specialized field of machine learning that utilizes and involves AI models that are capable of generating new content. So these models, like large language models I'm sure you know of, can learn underlying patterns and structures, learn of input data, and then they use that knowledge that they know about the input data to produce new original output data that resembles work created by humans, essentially. And so, for example, one of these AI models, a generative AI model, is a diffusion model. And diffusion models create new original image data. Another example of a generative AI model is a large language model. I'm sure most of you are familiar with ChatGPT. So that output is original text data. And so, in summary, artificial intelligence is the overarching field that focuses on simulating human intelligence in machines. Machine learning is a method within artificial intelligence that enables systems to learn from data and improve over time. And finally, generative AI is a branch of machine learning that specializes in generating new data.
Excellent. Thank you, Alexander. Alex, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So with the different types of AI that are going on, machine learning, all of the inputs aren't necessarily created equal as well as part of that. And so kind of in your ice cream example, not every flavor goes well together or may have different ingredients, things like that. And so as we work in AI, a lot of the data that comes in is unstructured data. So the 2 main kind of data components are either structured or unstructured. So structured would be when you have very consistent formats, columns, it may come in a CSV file, some other kind of data format, but it's always consistent and it's easy to learn. And so machine learning really kind of works better with that type of data because it's consistent and can learn from it, and you know what you're going to get whenever that comes in. However, unstructured data, as the name implies, can be extremely variable in how it comes in. So this could be a PDF, it could be an email, a spreadsheet, something where the format may change just enough that if you have a trained model on it, it may or may not be able to recognize if data is missing, if it's in a different place, but it's actually still there. And so one of the things that's needed for unstructured data is natural language processing. So this is whenever you're able to scan that kind of information like a PDF, read it like a human, be able to extract the relevant information and digitize that, and then be able to use that however you need in your database, send it somewhere else, whatever that may be. And so that's been a huge advancement in AI to be able to do those kinds of things and, to Alexander's point, really act like a human in how it's reading that information and extracting it. And so those are some of the key considerations you need to make on what kind of ice cream you want, because again, depending on the kind of data that you're using, what you're wanting to use it for, you may need to use a different method of utilization for that.
Excellent. Well, I know now in my head I'm thinking about ice cream when I think about AI, so I'm not sure about the rest of the audience. And I think through David's presentation, there are lots of examples or areas where AI or machine learning could have actually been woven into the conversation. And I think now is probably a good example if we move into how is AI and machine learning currently being used in performance, risk, and benchmarking. And perfectly, we've got Paul here who can talk from the what's happening in the real world, what's happening in practice. How do you use this in performance?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the sort of AI transition for a typical performance team. And when I do this, I break it down into sort of 3 phases. So day one, you don't have AI at your firm. You can access open source, so you can ask ChatGPT a question. So you might be writing a document, and you might want ChatGPT to create the benefits of the IRR, and you can steal that and you can put it into your work. You're still responsible for it, but you can get an open source to do something for you. So that's kind of day one. Day two is you actually get access to something within your company. So at Railpen, we've got Copilot for Microsoft 365. So we've had a rollout of that. We actually have to do some pilot training, and we have to acknowledge that if we use AI to generate something, we're still responsible for it. So you have to second check this stuff. But it's a novelty at first. So you get you might record a meeting that you're in, and you might get the AI assistant to summarize the meeting for you. You might get it to draft an email. It's great for winging it before meetings. So the PDF reader is a great example. So there's a big document, it's 5 minutes before the meeting, and you haven't read it. AI can summarize a PDF document very quickly. The Adobe AI assistant is great. And then if you're in the meeting and someone's talking about a reference to it, you can ask the Adobe assistant, is that true? Where does it reference performance analyst, etc., etc. If you use it a lot, it becomes this bit like having, my analysts have said it's a bit like having a junior analyst on the team. So it can do some creative work for you. It can bring efficiencies, but you still need to double check everything. We have a growth pooled fund, and we refer to it as GRPF. Now, AI will call that the Growth Risk Parity Fund. It just makes that up. It assumes that's the name of the fund, and it's not, and that's a common error. So I can see if something's been generated by AI and hasn't been checked at Railpen. You're at a crossroads at this point, because the risk is that the novelty of doing that wears off. So it's summarised a meeting. It might generate an email, but ultimately you go back and sort of correct it and rewrite it anyway. And at that point, you can almost feel like, okay, this is a new toy, but the benefits are not really delivering for me. And I've tried to, certainly within my team, is to push us beyond that into what I would call day 3. And that's where we're using AI to create genuine efficiencies and value add. And I'll talk around some instances of that. So where we found it particularly useful is working with programming languages. Now, we have a lot of knowledge of that within the team, but not across this full spectrum of programming languages and some of the Python applications. So in the old world, you might have a centralized database, and you might have some stored SQL procedures that do some start of day checking, or send data to a third-party system or software. These processes typically are owned by your IT team. They're written by your IT team. And as we know, as performance practitioners, we're always fighting for IT development time with the day traders or the quant equity teams, and we're always losing. So there's always another team that's more important than performance out there. Now, with AI, what we've found is, we can switch SQL stored procedures into Python. We can put a front end on that, so we can ask AI to translate code. We might be familiar with Matplotlib, for example, but not the Dash app, and we can use AI to start to generate a GUI or a front end on top of those stored procedures. And actually, a vision that we had for something that our IT team was going to produce, we can start to sort of realize that ourselves. And is it a case of what do you if you had 30% more time, what would you do? And the challenge that I've asked my team is you can work in that creative space if you use AI to generate those efficiencies. Another example would be one of the low-hanging fruits in the risk management world would be post-trade mandate compliance. So where's your positioning today against, say, some preset thresholds? If you've got a multi-asset fund and equity, it has to be between 65% and 45%. Now, working with these programming languages and daily data or a database, we can have that information to us. We can have it when we need it, and we can also set up emails to tell us when things are not as expected. And we can create, some nice dashboards in and around that. So we can work with the best of, say, Python dashboarding and the best of Power BI dashboarding to get some automated sort of real-time positioning of where we are against our sort of risk thresholds and limits. So we found that we can largely automate away that post-trade mandate compliance process. We can get AI to suggest code, suggest different approaches to coding, and then AI becomes you move it from the junior analyst into, say, the teacher. So why did you suggest this particular area, or, this particular approach to coding? And it'll tell you. So it's really good for that. And just finally, just being able to, it's good for troubleshooting code as well. But having those efficiencies means that my team can be less of a reactive team, where we're just reacting to requests from the rest of the business. And we've got the space to actually head that off and become a more proactive team. So what does the business need? Instead of the business asking for us things, that data, that dashboard, that information is already there. And that's one of the benefits, certainly, that AI has brought to us.
Wow, it sounds like you're using AI quite a bit there, Paul. Is that the case, you'd say?
We was always... So I always have had an emphasis on programming and automation anyway. It's just that AI has made us better at that. So, to trouble stack code before, you might have to go onto Stack Overflow or some forums and then find out, what's going wrong. And it could take half a day. But AI can give you results pretty instant and suggest 3 or 4 different alternatives, ways that you could have done it. So in that essence, certainly for me, the focus has been around the use of those programming languages to improve our efficiency and automation. And AI has been, a big benefit to that.
Excellent. No, it sounds very good. Alex, I know you've got quite a few examples yourself of using AI.
Yeah, so we have our own proprietary AI. So this is something that First Rate's been doing for quite a few years, bringing this to our clients. And to some of Paul's points, this really allows our teams, our clients, to be more proactive than reactive. Really in the performance space, we're dealing with a lot of historical data. We're having to look backwards in the past. And so, we're used to kind of being a little bit reactive. And so having AI being able to do these things faster, improve our efficiencies here, really allows our teams to add more value in what they're best at, and let AI kind of, take those other things that are a little bit more manual, a little bit more repetitive, and kind of remove some of those things. And we can talk about that more in a little bit. But also to Paul's point, that you really have to check the AI. So this really needs to be a decision enablement tool, not a decision making tool. So this is something that you still want to go review the results. You still want to make sure that everything is accurate, that you're not just pushing it out there of whatever it says, because there's times it could be wrong. AI can hallucinate if you don't have it trained properly, and it makes up something just so that way it has an answer. And so those are definitely some things you want to avoid. But as part of David's presentation, one of the big trends that are currently going on is really around private equity and the shift of allocations to that sector. That's something that requires a lot of manual data entry for folks. We're getting PDFs from private equity firms, other hedge funds, that performance analysts are having to go take that, pull the data off, put it into spreadsheets, manually do calculations on their own, and it's a very tedious process that's prone to human error. And so one of the ways in which we've really been helping our clients on this is automating that process to eliminate, for the most part, that human error risk, and also speed up this process quite a bit. And so being able to take in those statements using natural language processing to pull that information, we're able to then take that, compare it to other sources of information as well. So we're not only aggregating different sources of data, but we're normalizing that into a consistent format and then reconciling. So that way we make sure that, is there data missing? Is there inconsistent data? Does all the math add up? And so that's been a huge use case for us, for our clients, is being able to automate those types of processes utilizing natural language processing. And so that's been a huge use case for us. And then others with natural language generation, being able to take a client report and be able to come up with, within a few seconds, a lot of the high points for an advisor or for a manager to be able to summarize what's going on in the portfolio, what's going on with performance, why did we overperform or underperform, so that way they're, as they're preparing for a meeting, everybody procrastinates quite a bit going into those, and so making sure that you're able to touch on those high points and not necessarily replace the conversation that you're going to be having around what's going on with the performance, but being able to supplement what's going on, enable better conversations. Maybe the AI caught something that you hadn't thought of, or maybe looked over and missed. And so we've seen a lot of efficiency there in being able to reduce the amount of time that people need to prep for meetings looking at performance. And so those are two of the biggest use cases we've seen within our client base. But then again, just internally, we do some of the outsourced performance analyst work for our clients. And so being able to utilize AI for exceptions, understanding, is everything accurate within the portfolios? Do we need 5 days to finalize an account before it's ready for client reporting? Or with the use of AI, can we take that down to 2-3 days and be able to save not just time for our clients, but time for our employees, give them the ability to do things that they're better at, be more consultative with our clients, and really focus on how they can continue to add value versus just looking through a bunch of spreadsheets, seeing if everything is accurate or not. And so those are some of the biggest use cases that are currently in production today, and that we have people running with probably as we speak.
Excellent. Yeah, I think from what we've heard from yourself and Paul, and also from David's presentation, obviously about the using the tool from Amazon to mimic your working from home. There's different use cases of AI going on, and I think the Microsoft Copilot that you mentioned, Paul, I think that's probably quite a few people in the audience have probably been able to have a look at that. It seems to be out there. Microsoft, as always, are very focused on these types of tools. And I've used it myself, the Copilot brief. I'm not a programmer, I can't do Python or anything like that. I usually leave that to other people. But Copilot, go and look at an RFP, give me a summary, create a presentation. All of a sudden, I've got a 44-page presentation that just takes all the 44 questions and puts them on one slide, each with an answer. Didn't really help me in summarising. But yeah, the summary can be very good. To Paul's point of actually, before you're going into a meeting, you've got a big document, you also want to get the salient points from that document. That summary can be very useful. We've also used it for some videos that we've got, and people can't attend the call. It's an hour-long video. We're going to sit there and watch an hour long. We just use Copilot to give us a summary. We need to teach Copilot how to spell rhymes, because it thinks it's a nursery rhyme, but we'll work on that part. I guess that's feedback that we can look to. I guess if we take it a step further now, if we look to the future, how will AI machine learning be used in performance and risk and benchmarking in the future? How do you see that happening? Alexander, should we start with you this time?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm going to talk a bit about agentic large language models, which in my opinion is the next frontier of generative AI and innovation, which is happening right now. And so the concept of agentic large language models is increasingly relevant as we move towards systems that don't just passively generate information, but actively engage in tasks autonomously. And so just to take a step back, if we look at traditional large language models like the GPT line of models from OpenAI and Claude and BERT, etc., they excel understanding and generating human language based on large-scale training data. And as you guys mentioned, their primary function is reactive, right? They respond to prompts, or they summarize your meeting notes, or summarize your data, or they generate new text. But they really require human input to initiate tasks. And so, examples in finance are generating financial reports or analyze this market trend, etc. Whereas, these models answer questions in a very one-directional interaction. They don't take independent actions themselves. Whereas agentic large language models, on the other hand, they operate on a more autonomous level, right? So if you imagine an agent as a large language model that's been given a driver's license and keys to a car, they essentially no longer are passive tools responding to human queries, but instead they can initiate actions themselves or make decisions based on predefined goals and autonomously execute these tasks in a very structured environment. And so agentic large language models will combine language understanding with decision-making capabilities And by interacting with external systems or environments and databases autonomously, they will act as this next level of powerful use cases with artificial intelligence.
Scary, isn't it? Don't you think?
Scary. Yeah, well, taking actions, it's beyond just you asking it, summarize these notes for me, or create a financial report for me. Instead, it will be in the background running, driving these insights, taking actions, and it's a natural progression.
Do you think that would be more operational? So you could
Definitely.
help your operations go back, get tasks done quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, would you like to give your views on what you see the future for this?
Yeah, I think so. What we've seen at Railpen, the rollout of AI enablement, has very much been tread softly. So, looking to the future, to be fully enabled, I think our sort of IT security team, enterprise risk management team, etc., they need to be comfortable with where this is going. So our internal positions and data is confidential, and it needs to stay that way. But that being said, the next step for us is to migrate from, say, Copilot for Office 365 to Copilot for Fabric, and we turn that AI lens into our sort of internal database and make sure that it's protected. So the idea of sort of Copilot for Fabric is very much the next step for us, I think. The risk there, with sort of that data usage, is it's almost like pay as you go. So we need to understand, what's the worst thing you could ask AI to do with a large database, and the people holding the purse strings, how much are they in for? So that's I think that's still, that understanding still to be sort of figured out, really. But some companies, they have achieved that already. There's some companies that have an internal chatbot. So, in the futuristic world, you could ask AI Paul for some performance numbers, and AI Paul would give you a trustworthy answer that doesn't need to be second checked by real Paul. So that that's something. I think some companies have already achieved that. But then moving even further from that is sort of AI working not as that junior analyst, but as that sort of creative consultant on a holistic firm-wide basis. So my companies, we're embarking on a TPA approach to investing and investment analytics. Would AI have suggested that 5 years ago? Would that have been the answer? So that, because AI can understand performance, I'm sure, but can it understand performance at Railpen? And again, I think that's the next steps. And ultimately, then with risk management, getting the sort of post-trade mandate compliance piece automated is really nice. And for us now, it's understanding our risks better and sort of linking up that macroeconomic world with the internal world at Railpen. And I think where we, the future side of it is, well, can it identify those investment risks before they arise and help us to navigate that? And for me, that's an open question at this stage.
Yeah, very good. Alex, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think to Alexander's point, agentic AI is really up and coming and kind of the cutting edge of where AI is going at the moment. And so that's something that we're heavily exploring on how can we utilize this to improve, the analyst's workflow, other workflows. Because it being an agent, it can kind of replicate specific tasks that our team members are doing and then be able to go autonomously do that without any kind of prompting, without us, having to tell it, hey, go do X, Y, Z. Sorry, I'm American, so I'm used to saying Z, so I had to think about that. But being able to do those tasks, being able to make that more efficient, but then also have self-reflection. It goes and it has another agent that's able to then go and validate that information, make sure that it's doing it properly. So we're not having to necessarily do that double checking. And so we can be more sure of what we're doing, what it's changing, how it's performing that task, and know that it's doing it correctly. And so I think agentic AI is really one of the things that is going to make a lot of changes in the industry. And I wouldn't say replace jobs, but certainly replace specific tasks that allow us to do our jobs better. And then again, with just being able to do, those kind of chat bots internally, externally. I was told I was allowed to say this, that we had a demo on some of the newer technologies that we're doing, and for an internal chat bot, and it's like, ask anything. And usually whenever you're asking a chat bot something, it's like, okay, it'll only look at what's on the page that you're looking at. I want to ask it a more difficult question that would have to make it actually think about something that is not present in this document. And so I was looking at a performance report, and I said, what benchmark is most appropriate for this portfolio? It had a couple benchmarks that it was showing, and it came back and said, actually, none of the benchmarks that are on the page are appropriate for this portfolio. What I would recommend is a mixture of these different benchmarks and these kinds of allocations based on what's in the portfolio. And I was blown away that I was like, oh, this is actually happening. This isn't just a load of nonsense. And so I think there is a pretty wide future of what we can do with AI, how we can utilize that to improve what we're doing. And we'll see, maybe a year from now there will be a totally new set of use cases that we haven't even thought of that AI will come up with for itself. And so who knows? But I do see a lot of value in what's going on, and I'm pretty excited to see how this really moves forward the performance industry.
Yeah, that's really, really useful, Alex. I think it's fair to say there's a lot of people that are investigating what's possible, the art's possible. Obviously, there's also the use of it. Lots of people are using AI and machine learning to improve processing. But I think back to David's bit about programming. In 10 years' time, it's going to be the end of people's jobs. You don't need all these performance analysts when you've got AI to do most of the work. It's going to be an interesting journey in that respect. Who knows what the future holds? I'm sure we'll get there. Going to give you a chance now to move this page on. Wrong one. There we go. Throw it out to the audience. First of all, actually, maybe before I throw it out to the audience, I think the panel of answers given us a really good background on AI and machine learning. Hopefully that's given you a good starting point. Well, welcome any questions.
Fast forward 18 months or whatever, okay? Access to a AI bot, okay, which is like CFA, level 3, qualified, okay? Do I need a team of like 8 people, okay, with CFAs in performance? What's your thoughts, guys?
I'll start with that one. So that currently you can ask AI to do tasks or to come up with a document or a presentation. You still have to second check it, and you still have to your first sort of question to AI is for me is not usually the best one. I then have to tweak my question. Can you add more detail around this area? So that sort of the knowledge of the industry you still need to have currently. And when we change between different programming languages and put a dashboard on there, it's easier to do. It's easier to know if it's doing it right if you already have the knowledge of that, some base knowledge of that programming language anyway. But then, I spoke about, so it can do performance, but can it do performance at Railpen? So can it understand what's important in performance analytics at Railpen? We're a long-term investor, for example. Does it understand that? So there are certain nuances that I think may always elude AI. Maybe not, but I think that's where we are today. So in terms of structure of the team, I don't see it currently. Sort of the next 3 years, there won't be a different structure to my team, and when I hire people, I'll always look for that sort of programming background. It's easier for me to teach performance topics than it is to teach programming to someone. So my preference is to start with a programmer, actually. And just one final point, because I was having a discussion earlier in the week about sort of having a graduate program at Railpen, and it was I sort of posed the question: Why do we want a graduate program at Railpen? Is this from an altruistic background, or is it because there's tangible benefits to Railpen from doing this, and what are those benefits? And if we list the benefits out and then we say to to a panel of senior decision makers, how do we get those benefits? Would the answer be a graduate program? Or would it be you actually focus that same time and effort and cost on having a dedicated AI program within different teams? Would that do it, for half the time and half the cost? And that's an open question. So, perhaps there is a threat. It depends how we pose the question. But I think certainly within my area, there's no restructuring on the cards yet.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I just want to build on top of what you were saying, Paul, about how you can create something which is bespoke to Railpen or bespoke to the CFA AI bot, right? Like there are techniques that you can do where fundamentally, if you plug into one of these foundational models, like it will give you a half decent answer, but you can build layers of information and knowledge into these AI models, right? To get it speaking how you want Railpen's AI bot to speak, or to ensure that it will only reference certain materials within the CFA level 3, right? So there are techniques in which you can do to build and curate a knowledge base that will then be leveraged by these AI models to answer very specific tasks. So I personally think, like within the next 18 months, just to use your timeline, you'll very much be able to create a CFA level AI bot, which it might not be able to replace your need to have, ex-graduates or ex-qualified individuals, but you should be able to halve that because you only realistically need 1 or 2 people to fact check the responses, depending on how scaled your application will be.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think that, over the next, few years, 18 months, 3 years, we'll see a change in what our teams do. So I wouldn't necessarily say, be ready to cut half your staff. I don't think that's necessarily the answer. But what I would say is that utilizing AI in this space is really going to allow scalability on your team. So as you add on more accounts, as you add on more AUM, in our case, as we add on more clients, the one analyst that's CFA, CIPM designated can handle a lot more and have the scalability to do more. And that way, you have your 8 CFA holders, rather than them only being able to do an X amount of work, they're able to automate a lot of things and do more value-add activities that they are specifically trained for, that just AI can't do certain things, and really have that human touch, interacting more with other people, being able to add their expertise as CFA holders rather than being button pushers half the time. So for me, I don't necessarily think it will reduce existing teams. I think it will just change what the teams are doing and potentially add that you don't have to add as many team members as you have in the past as you grow.
Back to the kind of the scary bit about AI. Driverless cars to me is scary. You see some of the films where they hack then into the computers and control all the cars to make them crash. What do you think about that side of AI? For the movies?
This is what I say whenever anybody asks me, like, are you not scared of the progress of AI? Of course it's scary how quickly it's progressing, right? But do you know anybody who's smarter than you?
Of course.
Yeah, right? Of course. Are you scared of them? No. So you shouldn't be scared of artificial intelligence. Essentially, it's just superhuman intelligence, right? Like, you shouldn't be scared of that. You should be excited to make your life better with it.
Doing anything with AI, to include thinking about it, exploring it. Can we see a show of hands there? Okay, so there's a few more that are at least thinking about it, right? And then tying into the question that you mentioned, Steve, how do you see AI? Do you see it as a tool, a threat, or are you unsure? So how many of you see AI as a tool? Okay. How many of you see it as a threat? Oh, nobody's threat. Oh, okay. Somebody's honest.
One behind you as well.
Oh, okay. So some of you see it. I would have thought more of you would have seen it as a threat. So it looked like almost 100% answered. How many are unsure? Okay, both. Yeah, I think you could answer both. It's a tool, but I'm also threatened by it. Sure. Okay, thank you.
I think there's still a lot to learn about AI. I mean, I've certainly learned a lot today from the panel. There's a lot of the words you've mentioned, trying to understand it and unpick it, and some of the wordings and terminologies, but certainly it's been very useful.
So we've been using a FactSet AI tool to write our market commentary for our equity attribution tools. So a question for you guys is, do you think more teams will be building that capability internally, or will you be leveraging systems? And then a second question is, how are you keeping this safe? How are you keeping your data safe? I mean, what are your companies thinking?
Sure, I can start out. So I do think more people are going to be using those types of tools now, whether they build it internally, whether they outsource it. I mean, that kind of depends on the firm. So, I mean, even if you look at, performance systems or reporting systems, some people do it internally, some people outsource it. So it really kind of depends on how you like to go about things. A lot of people like to be in total control of it, so they might want to bring that in-house. Others, they may want to outsource that to an expert, whether it be FactSet or another vendor. So for that, I think it just kind of depends on what you like. Now, to keep it safe, one of the things that we do is, we completely take it away from the internet, so it's not, it's not like we're using ChatGPT that's internet-based, that you're able to get hackers in there, be able to put in, bad information that could then result in negative consequences. If you're wanting to use this, you need to have this kind of on your own servers, your own database, cut off from, access to the internet, so that way whenever you're asking it questions or using it, it's only using its internal data that's already present. So that way you can eliminate any kind of bad actors going in, adding in fraudulent information. Like if you're asking it to write some code for you, there's people out there that could go have it put in bad code that then steals your data, does some, adds in a, some kind of Trojan horse type of deal that you don't want to have. And so you really want to make sure that it is properly within compliance of your firm, that it's cut off from the internet, and that you're able to kind of control that. And so there are vendors that offer those types of solutions for you. I think ChatGPT does it for some enterprise solutions, things like that. So, but the main part is making sure that it's totally within your own sphere, and that any kind of compliance regulations that your firm may have, you definitely want to make sure you follow those.
Yeah, just to double click on the safety point there, obviously and naturally one of the key concerns from clients when looking to explore building out AI within their services is, what about our sensitive data, right? And so, the flow of sensitive data leaving your ecosystem is like a big no, right? And that's why using third-party tools like ChatGPT is also a big no within enterprises unless you have an enterprise deal. And so what we do at Rhymes is that we leverage these leading large language models, which are hosted in a secure environment through Microsoft Azure and other cloud service providers. And so that way we can prevent the flow of sensitive data from leaving our walls. And to go back to your point, your original question about internal or external, like exactly what Alex said, right? It's a buy or build situation. You ask yourself whether or not we have the resources, whether or not it aligns with our strategy if we want to build this internally, or if you just want to augment your existing strategy by leveraging third-party vendors.
Darren? Hello. On the threat point, for me, it was all about accountability and responsibility of the data of the answer if you're allowing the AI to answer for you without checking it. I know you commented that was where I see the threat. The way I see this building out a little bit is you can have AI inside, but there's budgetary constraints because it's probably not cheap. But we can go into that. I think the biggest way, if the clients start using AI to analyse our portfolios and ask us questions based on what they see, we're going to have to buy similar AI to answer their questions of what they're seeing. So do the two machines just talk at that point? And so I think a defence will be we'll have to go this route because we'll be asked the questions from clients using AI. Just any comments on that?
Yeah, it's a chicken and an egg situation. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think it's a necessity, really. Naturally, the way that we're going, people are using it, leveraging it. As we've discussed, it really improves your efficiency. And so, why not?
So we still have that responsibilities with the individual. So I might respond to you using AI via email, but I'm responsible for that email. So that's one of the guardrails is just having clear sort of lines of responsibility around output. So if you're responding to a client, they've asked a question, whoever's responding to them is responsible for it, but they can utilize AI to help them.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you have clients that are starting to use AI to ask you better questions, that then in turn forces you to provide better answers. And so really, you could look at it in a way that really benefits everybody involved, that you're asking better questions, you're better able to explain the investment story, what's going on, maybe have better dialogue with the client to come up with better results for them so that really fit more of their goals, because not every client may be a financial professional. They may not know the ins and outs. They may not know the right questions to ask. So if they're able to utilize a tool that helps them prepare, I think that ultimately makes everyone in the loop better and provide better feedback. So to me, it can seem a little bit like a threat, but I also see it very much as an opportunity as well.
Just before I forget, you mentioned costs as well. So I don't know if everyone's aware of Moore's law. And so Moore's law states essentially that over time, the power of compute and microchips will increase twofold, whilst the size of the microchips and the operational efficiency to create them will halve. And so what we're seeing now with artificial intelligence is essentially Moore's law squared, right? We're going at such an incredible rate in which, fine, if GPT-4o was released and it would cost you, 0.001 penny per API call, in a month's time, that might be slashed by 50%. And then in the following month's time, it will be slashed again by 50%. So these things might be expensive because of compute, but naturally over time, the more compute there is, the more massive databases there are, the cheaper it will be to run.
I see, guys, sort of huge value in basic AI, on basic ex post space, attribution, NLG, all that stuff, But what's your thoughts on sort of how AI could be used for forward-looking risk ex ante? Because ultimately, I wouldn't want a bot, advising me to go underweight autos, What's your thoughts on it, guys?
Yeah.
So the current use case with ex ante risk and AI is just being able to sort of process large amounts of data, ever increasing amounts of data, and spot patterns that the human brain might not naturally spot. So that's I sort of talked about, can it get to the point where it's anticipating risks before they've happened and helping us to prevent them? And I left that as an open question, so I'm unsure about that piece. But certainly, where we are today, certainly within Railpen, is using it to help us better understand our risks. Is the place where we're at currently. So some aspects of it we've outsourced away, say the post-trade mandate compliance side, but I think it's just bringing in that sort of the Railpen and the micro and the macro environment and the data processing side of it. AI is a really powerful tool for doing that.
I mean, to put it in perspective, we have the self-driving car example. That's anticipating a lot of risk of getting on the road, not hitting other cars, not hitting pedestrians, making sure you're staying in the lines. And so people are trusting that not just with their money, but with their very lives. And so I do think there is a lot of benefit in being able to do that. But as I mentioned earlier, AI should really, especially in this context, be used as a decision enablement tool, not a decision-making tool. And so it may make those recommendations, but you're responsible if you follow those recommendations or not. And so I think you do have to kind of use your own logic of, does this make sense? Is it seeing something that I'm not seeing? And not just blindly following it, but really considering it and then making a decision based off of that.
Yeah, and definitely not using out-of-the-box solutions. Like if you just trust your portfolio or your risk on out-of-the-box ChatGPT, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend building something bespoke, something more intelligent.
This might be a bit of a naive question, and it's a little bit different than the ones before. Going back to the previous question, you were talking about cost and about how it'll get it cheaper in monetary terms. I've read a little bit, very little bit, about the environmental cost of AI, and I know we were talking about ESG earlier with regards to investments, but are companies also considering the ESG of AI and the environmental cost of using these tools?
Such a good question, and it's definitely a topic that is getting more and more traction at the moment. Fundamentally, large language models are expensive in energy as well, and being able to have a view of and traceability of how much you're spending on it is really important. I haven't seen many metrics out there measuring the costs economically and environmentally of the usage of AI, so it would be super interesting to look into that.
Definitely a great question. I think we're all struggling to find the answer, but ultimately, if you look at all these companies, David's example earlier of Tesla, you think of it being very good. It's a green using electricity, but reality is obviously you've got to create the cars, you've got to build the batteries, etc. So I think it's probably the same for large language models and the technology behind that. And I guess the Microsofts and the other companies have got these. Was it Microsoft Fabric, where you say the pay as you go? So then it's
and that's my concern would be, what are my analysts asking it of AI, and how much data? It's very open sort of questions. How much computing power is that taking, and how much is that costing ultimately if we're just sort of on a running meter? So I don't know what's the worst case that someone could ask with AI on a database. What could happen?
Yeah, we've had to put guardrails into our Copilot to prevent exactly that, right? If we've got millions of rows of data and it comes up with a SQL query that wants to execute across all of them, we have to limit it.
Yeah.
The panel mentioned that it will be necessary to have teams of checkers or individuals do fact-checking on AI output or AI conclusions, market commentary, etc. But what tools do they have at their disposal to do that? Because AI is very much, especially LLMs, very much of a black box. So it's very difficult to understand how the AI came to a particular recommendation.
Yeah, really, really interesting question. And that's something that we've done a lot of work in, where going back to the Copilot example, our text-to-SQL Copilot, in order to validate that the SQL that the Copilot has generated is correct, we needed either human in the loop, which is how we started. We have feedback loops where we have a handful of financial analyst experts and SQL experts to fact check whether or not the SQL was correct and the response to the question was correct. But that was obviously never the optimal solution. So what we've done is that we've leveraged AI again here to create an evaluation framework, right, which automatically validates the AI's output. So we're using AI to fact check AI, and it's posing to be quite efficient and quite good.
Yeah, to that point, utilizing one model to validate another model is something that we're doing as well to, make sure that it's accurate, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to, as well as like in my example earlier of, aggregating data, normalizing it, reconciling it, making adjustments to it as needed, to avoid that entire black box scenario. Any changes that are made to the source data are then recorded and also sent along with the actual data that we have. So that way there is no question of what changed, what happened. So, if there's a question on it, you have all that information at your fingertips, and you're not just wondering, what did the AI do to my data? So absolutely need transparency in that, so that way you're not wondering what it's doing for you.
Yeah, traceability is key, right? As you mentioned, these large language models fundamentally are black boxes, but there are techniques, going back to prompt engineering, there are prompt engineering techniques to help see the train of thought that these large language but to see the steps that these large language models have taken in order to produce that output. And that's where these logical reasoning models that are coming out now are super interesting, because you can trace the thought process or their simulated thought process and see exactly why they're doing it.
So excellent questions and excellent answers from the panel. Should we say thank you to the panel then? I think they've done an excellent job.